What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast. I am, of course, your host, Ethan Smith, who does the most, and me and Gary have a lot to cover today. That's basically what we'll get into today. Monday was kind of like a Cyber Monday for the Pirates, except instead of getting good deals, they decided to make deals of their own with other teams. They've also made a little bit of an addition to the roster, like we wanted them to, but they also let go of some guys as well. So Monday was just a very crazy day. A lot of you guys were very active on Twitter with it. But of course, again, I am your host, Ethan Smith of the Locked On Pirates podcast. Me and Gary Morgan, as we usually do on Mondays, will be getting into all that today on Tuesday, November 30th. Thank you, of course, for making me your first listen of the day every single day. And just with the amount of stuff that we got going on over here in Pittsburgh Pirates land, we're going to get right into it.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And once again, guys, hope you all are having a phenomenal Tuesday, November 30th, the final day of November, where it seems like the entire world of baseball has pretty much flipped on its head at this point. And before we even get started, Gary, I just want to go ahead and quote you from yesterday before we get started. So at MVP_Ethan, I'll be honest, I'm not sure what you should expect from me on Locked On Pirates tomorrow. Can't make sense of some of this today. Be on your toes with the bleep button. I will say, Restream does not have a bleep button. So if it happens, I just have to say that the video is not made for kids, and then we're fine. But I figured let's go ahead and get into the biggest thing that happened yesterday. Probably the one that made you have that reaction. Jacob Stallings, of course, was traded to the Miami Marlins. The Marlins and the New York Yankees seem to be the two teams that were involved in him the most. Of course, the Pirates bring back 3 prospects in this deal as well. I'll let Gary get into those guys a little bit and also get into his thoughts on the trade. Jacob Stallings is gone. What do the Pirates do now?
Yeah, I mean, I see no succession plan. So, in isolation, I mean, I'm not overwhelmed by the deal, and I thought you really kind of needed to be overwhelmed by the deal to move on from a player that fills a hole you don't have an answer for. Zach Thompson is a 28-year-old pitcher who had a decent little stretch last year and was available to everybody for free after being DFA'd by the White Sox. Kind of hard to look at him as a headliner. Kyle Nicholas has a big fastball and a good slider, but he has no control. Sounds an awful lot like Tanaj Thomas to me. And Connor Scott? Maybe. I mean, I'm not impressed by the return, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend I am. And in isolation, it's not a good trade, and there's no point in doing it. I don't have the complete work in front of me. Maybe they'll go out and find somebody, but I've looked through the catching market. I don't see it. And I don't think there's an awful lot of them available in trade. You're certainly not going to upgrade. We haven't had a Gold Glove winner since Mike LaValliere. So it's not like you're going to find a better defensive catcher than Jake. So to me, I think they basically took away a bridge to Henry Davis that they didn't need to burn. And, I'm not happy with it on the surface.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't blame you, because realistically, it would be different, I would think, if this was 2 years from now and Henry Davis was, ready to go, and, this was, a whole, succession, like you said, a succession plan. Like, if you actually had a real plan to bring this in and figure it out after he's gone, that would make sense, right? Also, The fact that I also, one of the biggest and funniest parts of this entire trade is that Neil Huntington originally drafted Zach Thompson out of high school. So gotta love that, because now people are starting to call Ben Cherington Neil Huntington 2.0. But also, as I mentioned with that tweet that blew up yesterday, the whole point of this deal now, and this is something that people need to see, and if they haven't seen it yet, and that's where some people are losing sight of what I was saying, is they're like, how have you not seen this yet? I've seen it for the last year. I've already known what's going on. But there are some people that are like, why aren't we spending money and stuff? Because Ben Cherington has a clear plan here. He is retooling the entire roster. He is adding assets and accumulating them the way he can, and that is what he's doing. Now, do I agree with him just leaving a void at catcher in the major league level with virtually no way of fixing it and no know-how of fixing it at the current moment? No, considering you have 9 middle infielders and 8 outfielders on your 40-man roster right now and 0 catchers. That's not exactly a way you're going to win any games. Not saying the Pirates are going to win money games in 2022 anyway. But now the other question that was brought up is, does this mean that Brian Reynolds is virtually untouchable now either? Could he be on the move at some point?
Sure. I can tell you, those guys that are up for extensions, and, Reynolds in particular, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt he's looking for a little bit of proof that the team's willing to invest in the major league level. You certainly can't say that you saw that, right? From yesterday. So, I think extension talks with him probably took a hit yesterday, to be honest. And I'm not trying to be overly dramatic about this. It's just, at the end of the day, Jacob Stallings is a 30-plus-year-old catcher who played really good defense, and a fan base so hungry for somebody to look to as a star embraced him as one, even though he was almost 100% glove. And, at the end of the day, in a good team, he's a 7-8 hitter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they just traded Johnny Bench, but they did trade something they don't have. And the Marlins said it all, really, in their press release about this deal. They said they wanted to have a very strong defensive catcher to come in because they have so many young pitchers to help shepherd them in and get them onboarded faster. Well, guess exactly what I wanted Jacob Stallings to do for Pittsburgh.
Yep.
I said, I think a while ago on Twitter, if you have to do mental gymnastics to have something make sense, it probably doesn't. And it doesn't make sense. And I can't make it make sense, and I won't sit here and try to pretend I can for people. I'm not in charge of trying to be the PR department for the Pirates. I think they screwed up. I'm going to say I think they screwed up.
Yeah, and I don't have any disagreements right now, because unless Zach Thompson and these 2 other prospects really turn into, ridiculous players, this is a loss. This trade is a loss, no other way that you put around it at the current moment. I don't see any way that you could legitimately tell me the Pirates won this deal at the current moment.
And when I look at the market, first, there just aren't a lot of good options. There just aren't. But let's say they go out and take the top off the board. Well, they're going to pay $6 million for somebody like Yan Gomes.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to take a step back, both defensively and, I could argue at least maybe he could meet the bat requirements. He could at least be as good as Jake was. But for a few million more, which makes no sense even from what we know about the Pirates. And the thing is, I know Nutting's going to take heat for this, but this was like a null deal. They're not really saving any money here.
Nope.
This was a stupid deal, as far as that goes. It's not helping them in that regard either. I'm sorry. You got to point this in the right direction. This was Ben Cherington. Ben Cherington, and you can say it's part of his bigger plan, and he may be right. 2 years from now, we may watch this video and be like, man, we were way off on that. We understand now, Ben. Sorry. I'd rather do that than sit here and pretend I have a clear understanding and everything he does is great. Because I don't.
And I mean, and I also read your 5 thoughts at 5, I believe, or yesterday, where you were talking about the Church of Charrington. Church of Charrington people, by the way, go read that article on Inside the Bucks Basement by Gary. You're allowed to criticize the man.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a demigod. Like, okay, you're allowed to criticize him. He can do something wrong. Like, it's completely okay. But for the sake of getting to the other things in today's podcast, we will take a break real quick and also go ahead and let you know that today's podcast, of course, is brought to you by the wonderful people at betonline.ag. Betonline.ag, of course, is back and better than ever for the basketball season, football season, pretty much anything that you want to bet on at the current moment. Usually I have your little promo code down here, but I can't find it at the moment. Oh, there it is. Awesome. But betonline.ag, of course, if you go to that wonderful website and go bet on NHL, NFL, NBA, whatever you want to bet on, you can use the promo code locked on and 80% welcome bonus when you do so. I also have UFC, MMA, your favorite Vegas casino games. Bet online, of course, is where the game starts. Also, today's episode is brought to you by DirecTV Stream. DirecTV Stream, of course, is the best way to get your TV together. Make sure you're no longer juggling remotes. And you like to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle. It's a great way to finally get your TV together, like I said before. It brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So if you want to watch the Pirates for the first 5 innings until they're down by 10, want to watch Spider-Man No Way Time, it's on demand. You do that. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. I also don't know if you heard about that this past weekend with the Spider-Man No Way Home tickets, about how people were trying to buy them and waiting 2.5 hours to get them. That was interesting. I was not one of those people because I'm not going to do that.
I'll just wait for it to be on Disney Plus. I don't care.
Exactly. But with the flurry of news yesterday, we have the part of the news cycle yesterday for the Pirates that made the most sense. The next thing will be the one that made sense, kind of. But this one kind of, I guess, made the most sense. Is, of course, Yoshi Tsutsugo, Ben Gamel, and Jerad Eickhoff, as well as Jamie Ritchie, signed deals. So that led to Colin Moran, Stephen Brault, and Cody Ponce all out the door. Which one do you want to start on first? Because I know a lot of people were very upset about the Colin Moran thing, but realistically, I saw no problem with any of this. I really didn't.
I mean, I'll start with who's in. I mean, Yoshi. I mean, that happened last week. I think we kind of saw that coming. There was a lot of smoke there, and finally a fire came. They liked what he did. They signed him to a 1-year deal. I think the 1-year deal aspect of it really gave me pause about what they would do with Colin Moran.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently they don't care. Again, we're not too worried about having a succession plan, are we?
No.
So who cares that there's no first baseman coming, right? I guess you have Mason Martin, but
if he doesn't get taken in the
we think he's so great, we didn't even protect him in the 40-man. So Yoshi's the guy. He's going to play a lot of first base. So, I really hope there's no injuries. Part of me hopes there's no DH, because I'm not sure who's going to do that now, unless they bring in somebody else. As far as Jerad Eickhoff and Jamie Ritchie, who cares? I mean, they're minor league deals. They're basically tryouts. Give them a shot. Jamie Ritchie's a catcher. Cool. They definitely need somebody that can play. So I would imagine he and Michael Perez will fight it out for the backup catcher, if not starter. As scary as that sounds. Hell, maybe those two are the catchers. We just don't know yet. That's not good.
Just for context, if Michael Perez and Jamie Ritchie are what I have as catchers for the 2022 season, I will be drinking on this podcast every single day.
Yeah, I mean, at least Michael Perez showed defensively he can keep up. But, yeah, offensively, not pretty there. Jerad Eickhoff, interesting, honestly. This is an interesting pickup. We'll see what he does. I don't mind him getting a shot. Certainly no worse than Chase DeYoung, someone
Yeah.
along those lines. I don't mind that. And Ben Gamel, they got to take a cheaper deal than his arbitration figure looked like it was going to be. Um, I have to wonder if he didn't take that, if he'd have been gone too.
Yeah.
But regardless, they got that done, so they at least have somebody that pretty competent out there in the outfield. Yeah, it's not inspiring, but despite as far as cutting Moran, well, I mean he's slower than Moses in January, and maybe it's really hard to just carry that on a team. I mean, for real, you put him in the heart of your order, you can't even assure he's going to score on a double from second. Maybe that just got to be a little too much for everybody, and the injury history and the drop in power and whatnot. But still, he had a lot more power than most of what they've got. So I just think that, again, they may have cut loose something that they might need. Stephen Brault was injured all the time.
Yeah, that one didn't hurt too much.
No, I mean, I kind of expected it. I kind of am not done expecting Chad Kuhl to probably meet the same fate.
Kevin Newman also today, too. That's a big thing to watch today, Locked on Pirates family, is today is the last day that they can non-tender people, and I still think Kuhl is there, Newman is there, and there's still two other guys, I think, that are on that list as well.
I think Newman is pretty safe, but I also think Newman is a potential late in the day trade. I think there's a lot of teams that are going to miss out on one of those big shortstops and at least take him for the defensive prowess.
I'm so done with trades, Gary. I don't need it anymore.
So am I, but after yesterday, you can't sit here and pretend it's not there. No. It's something that I think they're not done exploring yet, and
you want to call the Mariners again? They're going after it.
Really, as fans, I think what a lot of people kind of hope 2022 would be is the Pirates putting their foot down somewhere and saying, this is where we're building. This is the foundation. And I think what we saw yesterday is, Jacob Stallings isn't part of that foundation or that bridge, at least as far as Ben Cherington's concerned. And now the question remains, is Brian Reynolds or Brian Hayes that? We are a long way from late 2019 when Ben Cherington was saying that this team very much so had pieces that would be here when it was competitive. They're running out of those pieces. And in order for that to be a true statement, he almost has to extend either Hayes or Reynolds. And if he doesn't, guess who wasn't being truthful?
Yeah. Because I believe at this point I saw something yesterday up until the trades that he's made now. So we'll get into are they done making moves in the final segment. But before we get to that, I believe now he has only inherited 8 major league players. I believe it's around that number. And of course that number is probably going to go down today. Chad Kuhl being one of those players. I think that number will go down. It really is just one of those things where the major questions right now is who is going to cement themselves as a real foundation of this rebuild, and where are Brian Reynolds and Brian Hayes going to be in a matter of 2 years. I really think.
And what do you have to do? What do you have to do as a player to prove that you are that? Because I think Jacob Stallings did everything in his power to prove that, and he was controllable and cheap for a while. He definitely could have been a bridge. Would have been even a great backup at some point, I think, on this team.
And I think he would have been okay with it. Like I
think he would have expected it.
Yeah, I don't think he's the kind of guy who would have been like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a backup. Trade me now." It's like, no, he probably would have taught Henry Davis how to play the game of baseball really well. Probably would have helped these pitchers out a lot, and also like realistically, I mean, like you said, cheap deal is the best 2 words a Pirates like owner can ever hear. So I mean, you can't ever get wrong there. Again, going back to a lot of these moves, I mean, the Colin Moran, Stephen Brault, Cody Ponce one. Colin Moran was the one that didn't really make the most sense, just because I thought keeping 2 first basemen, especially with the universal DH, is a possibility. I thought that would be a little bit bigger. Yoshi, Ben Gamel, I thought those were givens on guys that were going to come back this year. I didn't see them going anywhere, especially just with the Pirates and their amount of interest that they had in both players. And as you mentioned on Jerad Eickhoff and Jamie Ritchie, I mean, maybe I would like to see Eichoff maybe in the bullpen at some point. I don't think I want to really see him in the starting rotation or anything, just because now the one guy I feel bad for, by the way, who we talked about last week, Jose Quintana, in his opening presser. Oh yeah, I know the catcher. It's like, so the one guy that this guy knows, you trade away. The one guy, and I'm like,
I mean,
really?
let's face it, Quintana's not in a place in his career where he's looking for accommodations.
No.
So
no, but I mean, it was still kind of interesting to see that happen. But in our final segment today, and this is what we've already kind of detailed into, and it's probably a stupid question because the answer is yes or no. The answer is no. I just don't know how to format my answers. Are the Pirates done making moves? And
yeah, clearly not.
There's no way they can be. If they just up and stopped making moves before the lockout was done, then what was the point of doing all this, right? But what are the moves that we can expect? Well, me and Gary's shift has shifted now from signing a backup catcher to signing a starting catcher. So, woohoo to the 4-month tirade of saying we need a backup catcher. Well, guess what? You need a starting catcher, and really still preferably a backup too. That would be very much preferred, because I do not like seeing Michael Perez play baseball. I don't want to see him play baseball. I still think they need to add a few more arms in the bullpen. I don't know what they're going to do out there. So I think they do need to do that. Maybe 1 or 2. And then you could still look into adding an outfielder if you want. I've still wanted them to do it. No, they're not getting Andrew McCutchen. He literally did the cap symbol thing yesterday. For all of you people that don't know what that means no, he's not going to. Why would he come to this team?
It means the report was BS, at least.
Well, yeah, the report was at least BS, but more or less, why would he come here at this point? Just to get traded
I can speak youngster.
Yeah,
I know what it means.
Yeah, I was gonna say the report was false though. I don't know why anybody thought it was real. It was from a guy who had barely any followers saying he had it from sources, and I'm like, I noticed that about MLB offseason is all of these accounts all of a sudden they all have sources, and I'm like, usually when people say per sources, they usually tag the source. If you notice, when Ken Rosenthal or Jeff Passan and all them, whenever they actually release news, they always say per source this guy was first. Maybe if you started saying that, you'd have some credibility behind you. But we're not here to talk about credibility. What moves do you think the Pirates have to get done today? Because most people see this morning. What do they have to get done today to kind of shift our focus again in more of a happy route?
Is that specifically how you want to ask it? Is what they have to do today?
Well,
Nothing.
What should they do?
They don't have to do anything today. Things I think we should look out for. I think Kevin Newman is a real possibility. If somebody will take him, I think at this point, sure, go ahead. Yeah. I mean, get it done. And I'd love to see them, if you want to talk about happiness of fans, I'd love to see them extend Reynolds or Hayes or something along those lines. But, who else? I mean, for real, who else do you want to extend? You want to shoot for Mitch Keller?
Yeah, let's extend Mitch Keller. Why not?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. They don't have the players that you really want to see stick around forever. That's something that we probably didn't even touch on that we should. It's a 101 loss team. I'm not upset they're turning over the roster.
Yeah.
I'm upset that the part they're turning over is the only part that was successful.
Yeah. That's where I'm at too. It's like the one of the biggest parts of your season was how good you were defensively.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob Stallings was one of the highest, if not the highest player in defensive runs saved. You just
Absolutely.
predicated your entire 2020 spring training and 2021 spring training to saying you were going to be a better defensive team. You did that. Then one thing I said at the end of the year around one of the podcasts I did by myself at the end of the year, I said, don't just do it for 1 year and then stop being good at defense. Keep doing it. It's a good thing to have. It's a real good thing to have.
It's also
So
cheap.
it
Again, we
is.
say they like cheap. It's cheap
It's
to
not
be
very
good
expensive.
defensively.
I mean, Andrelton Simmons is probably the god of Pittsburgh Pirates fandom if you really want to get into it, because he can hit better than Kevin Newman, and I mean, he's a defensive mastermind. But don't just improve on things for 1 year and then say, okay, well, you did good. Let's go ahead. Oh, I thought the Pirates were involved in something because Buster Olney just tweeted about something. Never mind. I was losing my train of thought. As you guys see that I'm doing the good old swipey swipe thing. They were just talking about how Scherzer's making more money than our entire roster. Yeah,
43 million. Yeah.
yeah, MLB, you want to fix your salary stuff to where a player will stop making as much money as an entire team's payroll, please? Be great.
It would be great. I just at this point, who the hell really would they pay? And again, you've got
Yeah.
Reynolds, you've got Hayes. I'm stretching it to say Hayes, and I like the kid. I think he's going to be good, but I'd like to see a little bit more from him before I start talking about some major crazy extension. They don't have a lot of options here.
No.
They've really. We talked about tearing it down to the studs plenty of times. Problem is, they didn't agree with us on who those studs were.
Yeah.
So there was at least one less, right? And I looked at it more as like, hey, here's a hole that you figured out and it's patched. Now we can move forward and do this. And I thought the return would have to be so great to force their hand that, you'd come out of it with something. It's just, sorry, I'm underwhelmed. I really am.
Yeah, and I mean, but realistically, too, I was like, one of the main things I was saying as well, if you're going to trade Jacob Stallings, at least get a catcher back in return. Like, why not? It doesn't matter at what level of the system, at least add some depth to the system. Like, seriously.
Yeah, well, there's no teams out there that are anxious to get rid of catchers right now. They're a hot commodity.
Except the Pirates.
They're a hot commodity. They're not... there's not a whole lot of them on the market.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about the fact that Jacob Stallings was a hot name, I mean, there was, I think, at least 4 teams that I saw as being really in on him. And that's rare for a player that hits in the mid 200s. And, granted, he plays great defense, but that should tell you something about the market. So don't be thinking the Pirates are going to improve at this position. They're just not. They're going to get worse, period.
No, if they add Jan Gomes, it's not. It won't be a travesty. Like, I'll say that. Like, Jan Gomes is not the worst player you could have back there. He's pretty close, but he's not the worst player you can have back there. But you're not going to get the defensive output you got from Jacob Stallings, even if you get it from 2 different catchers. You're not going to get it. You maybe get the bat, depending on how it, like, whoever it is. May I interest you in Abraham Gutierrez as the starting catcher of the Pittsburgh Pirates in 2022? Carter Benz, maybe? Arden Past? I don't even think he's on the team anymore.
He's not.
Yeah, see? Look, I mean, how many catchers do we have in the system? Like 4?
10.
Oh, we have 10 now?
We have 10. Yep.
Oh, yeah, because I keep forgetting about Jamie Ritchie.
Gutierrez, Andy Rodriguez, and Henry Davis are the
3
showstoppers. So if those, and Eli Wilson too. I like Eli Wilson as well. But that's what they have coming. The problem is it's all too far away. Even Carter Benz is too far away. And on top of that, he's looked like absolute trash since they picked him up. So, and I mean that both defensively and at the plate. So it's not just sour grapes because of this trade just happening. He really has not impressed. So, and he by all accounts is the closest.
Mm-hmm.
So, best thing I can say about this whole thing is maybe it really speaks to a very accelerated track for Henry Davis.
Which would be fun.
But you'd like to see the kid actually hone his skills and be ready when he gets here. He's got a hell of an arm, but defensively behind the plate, he's got some work to do. Mm-hmm. He's a little bit of a project. And I don't mean that like in a bad way. I just mean you can't expect him to come up here and handle a pitching staff quite yet.
Which is something Jacob would have done. As we get to the end of the podcast today, what were some predictions on some things you think the Pirates are going to get done today? If they get anything done.
I don't know. All I'll really say is a decision on Chad Kuhl, one way or the other. If they make another trade, I think it's probably Kevin Newman. That's the only other one I really think is coming. The Brian Reynolds stuff has been quieting down, not getting louder.
Yes, I have noticed that too.
So even though I feel the way I do today, I'm not going to bring that bitterness in and assume that he's on his way out just because they traded Jacob. But I will say that it's more possible today than it was yesterday.
Yeah, it definitely seems like if anybody was traded on the roster at this point, it wouldn't come as much of a surprise. And that's very, like you said, it's very wild to say when you trade Jacob Stallings, who was not the greatest hitter in the world, mainly known for his defense and stuff. But as you said, that's just how the market showed it. But if Jacob Stallings was on this team still, we wouldn't be having most of this conversation. And two, I don't think Reynolds or Hayes would really go anywhere because then you kind of have like three solidified guys for like at least the next 2 years. You'd have Reynolds, Hayes, and Stallings. Yep. Can't really go too wrong with developing your team around a star center fielder, a pretty good third baseman when he wants to be if he can develop correctly, and a good defensive catcher. Can't really go too wrong there because then the other stuff was just going to fill itself in. Yoshi Tsutsugo at first. We were hoping Colin Moran maybe is a backup or still there. The multitude of middle infielders you have to play with platoon right now would have filled in. Ben Gamel is filled in at left field already after he re-signed. And then right field is an open spot for a prospect right now. Kanan Smith-Njigba, Travis Swaggerty, Anthony Alford, who's not really a prospect anymore, but still, Greg Allen. I mean, there's guys that could have been out there too. I mean, Tucapita Marcano, he can move around the diamond, guys. He can do that kind of stuff. He can maybe move out there. Maybe they want to eventually move O'Neal Cruz out there. But like you said, though, I think the biggest thing with this Jacob Stallings move is it showed that they're going to be accelerating a lot of guys in 2022. So we're going to be having to watch a lot of prospects come through this team because I think a lot of guys are going to be coming up really quickly now.
Which in a way is exciting because that's what a rebuild is about, is getting young players, getting them up here, letting them play. Again, my problem with the catching position is they don't have anybody. This would be a different conversation if Henry Davis and Andy Rodriguez or even Eli Wilson were close. They're not. That's really it. If this was next year, I feel better about this.
Yep.
And his value may not have been the same next year. I get that. That's why the return needed to be overwhelming for me this year. It wasn't. So, I'm sorry. I think it's a D from me. That's about it.
I'm even surprised you didn't give it an F, Gary. But that will end our weekly episode with Gary today. Gary, where can people see everything you pretty much just said in writing where you do all of your work and stuff? Because I know you're going to be having fun over there.
We've already got 2 pieces up on Jacob Stallings on Inside the Bucks Basement, and I'm sure that we're going to be venting most of the weekend about different things. And we're going to be trying like hell to figure out exactly what direction they're taking now. So there's that. And then you can listen to my podcast, Pirates Fan Forum, on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcasting Network.
Yes, of course. And you guys already know where you can follow me. You can follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan at the bottom of the screen. You can also follow this podcast at Locked On Pirates. You can find this podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, Google Play, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. Guys, thank you so much. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode today. Good luck to your mental health if the Pirates make more moves today. So we will be covering all of that. Of course, throughout the week with everything that me and Gary talked about, I'll probably devote an episode each to these things to go a little more in depth to them. I just wanted to get all of it out today so you guys could hear it. But thank you guys so much. Hope you have a phenomenal rest of your Tuesday, and I will see you on the flip side.